So in the previous video, what had we discussed was about Hastinapur divided into two sections, and what did the Pandavas get? Khandaprast. And with the help of Krishna and Balram, they cleared the forest, and then the Pandavas built a beautiful kingdom known as Indraprasth with the help of Maya, the architect of demons. Yes. Now, Yudhishthir had been invited for this dice game. So, Kunti, the Pandavas and Draupadi went to Hastinapur. Now, in the gambling hall, everyone was seated. Now, everyone was wondering what Duryodhana is up to next. So, this game started. So, the five Pandavas were sitting on one side with the Kauravas and their uncle Shakuni on one side, and the audience all sitting there. The game began. Now, when the game began, initially Yudhishthir started winning, and here the Kauravas had already told Yudhishthir, from our side, if you accept, let our uncle Shakuni play. So the Pandavas said, okay, fine, let Shakuni play on your behalf. So now, Yudhishthir was winning, and then after some time, Yudhishthir began losing. So when Yudhishthir started losing, what are some of the things he lost? He put at stake at first his jewels, chariots, slaves, elephants, horses, slaves, yeah. And one by one he began losing them. That was the first part of the game. So here now, when Yudhishthir started losing one by one, all his things he was putting at stake. Now, you know when a person starts playing and starts losing, then he puts another thing at stake and says, maybe this time I'll win. So his mind now starts thinking about winning. So now, after he lost this, now what happened was that the game did not end there. In the second part of the game, Yudhishthir now puts his land at stake. He loses. Then he places the kingdom at stake, Indraprasth. He lost and says, now I don't have anything. So here the Apro says, now, you know, he was very desperate to win. So he looks around saying, now I put Sahadev at stake. Here Duryodhana wanted to win. So he said to Shakuni, when Sahadev was put at stake, he says, you have to win this bet. Yudhishthir lost. Nakul next. Yudhishthir lost. Arjun next. Lost. Bhim next. Lost. He even put himself at stake. He lost. So he now says, now I don't have anything to put at stake. At that time, Karna says that you have your beautiful wife Draupadi. Why don't you put her at stake? Now, when somebody is losing, you are desperate to win completely, that maybe this might be your luck. So what did he do? Yudhishthir, who was a person who understood things, that time he became blank. What did he do? He put Draupadi at stake and says, here I put Draupadi at stake also. And when he did that, here Duryodhana, He had threatened his uncle and said, "This bet you must win. And I want Draupadi to become my slave, my servant." That anger in Duryodhan's, you can say, in Duryodhan was so strong now. Even Shakuni was scared. So the last time Shakuni rolled the dice and it is still lost. So Duryodhan sent his messenger and says, "Tell Draupadi come to the gambling hall. She does not deserve to stay in the palace anymore. She is now my servant, and all the 5 Pandavas, you are my slaves now. You are going to work for me." So he told them. When they were looking up, he says, "No, look down. Now you are my slaves. You will do whatever I tell you." So when Draupadi was summoned to come to the gambling hall, Bhim stood up and says, "Hey, watch out." He says, "You shut your mouth now. Sit down. You cannot say anything. Everything belongs to me now." All the other people there, the audience, they were helpless because now Dhritarashtra did not stop anyone, did not stop even Duryodhan nor Yudhishthir when the game was coming out of hand. Nobody could stop this game, and this thing happened. Now, the part that comes next changed everything. When the messenger reached Draupadi and she was told to come to the gambling hall, what happened was that Draupadi refused and says, "I cannot come." So the messenger came and said that she refused to come. This made Duryodhan angry and told Dushasan, his brother, "Go fetch Draupadi and bring her to this gambling hall." And that time Dushasan left storming. He went barging like powerful, that he is something. Went. He got hold of Draupadi's hair and dragged her to the gambling hall. Imagine pulling the hair and bringing. Yeah, now what happens? Once Draupadi is in the gambling hall, everybody is looking what's going to happen next. And that time, Duryodhan gestures and tells Draupadi, "Come and sit on my laps." Bhim stands up and says, "I am going to break your thighs for that act you have done today." Duryodhan tells Bhim, "Sit down, sit down. You are my slave, you don't have to answer. Just sit." So Bhim sat down. Now here the furious Duryodhan now tells Dushasan, "She's my slave, Draupadi. Strip off her clothes." So Dushasan starts pulling Draupadi's sari. And when Dushasan starts pulling Draupadi's sari, Draupadi now prays to Lord Krishna and says, "Please, it's you who is going to save my honor. I just pray to you now, help me." So that time Lord Krishna appears and saves Draupadi's honor. What does he do? The length of the sari Draupadi was wearing became big. Dushasan started pulling and pulling and pulling, but the end could not be found. Pulling. He tried to pull and pull and pull until he got tired and fell down. And that time, what happened was, Bhim stood up and said that, I will pull your hands, I will remove those hands of yours which has touched Draupadi, and I will also tear open your chest and drink your blood. Otherwise, I'm not a son of a Kshatriya. So now these two pledges to break Duryodhana's thighs and also to tear open Dushashan's chest and drink his blood. Wow, that was too much. Yeah, and here Draupadi is ready to curse all the people there. And that time Gandhari comes and stops her and says, "No, my dear, don't curse them." But and then Gandhari turns to Dhritarashtra and tells that, "What have you done? Do you know what you have done? You have insulted and humiliated a woman in your kingdom." So Dhritarashtra now was scared with all this. So what did he do? He gave back to Yudhishthir whatever he had lost and says, I free you, your brothers and Draupadi, and I give you back all whatever you have lost in this game. That you go back to Indraprastha and forget all this and forgive Duryodhana for his all this. So the five Pandavas with Draupadi and Kunti go back to Indraprastha. But by the time they reach Indraprastha, a messenger has already come with some message. What had happened was, when Dhritarashtra had returned everything back to Yudhishthira and told him to go, Duryodhana here was very angry and told Dhritarashtra, "What did you do? I had got everything in my hand and you gave it back to them? It is not possible. Now Indraprastha belongs to me and I want it back at any cost." So here they had already hatched a new plan to play the second game of dice. So the messenger had told them that return back to Hastinapur for a second game of dice. So the Kunti and the Pandavas and Draupadi returned back to Hastinapur. Now, in the second game of dice, Draupadi also sat with the five Pandavas because she said that you have people have involved me in these games. I should even know what is happening. So, the second game of dice had a condition. The loser goes to the forest for an exile of 12 years and spend the 13th year in disguise. And if he is recognized at the end of the 13th year, he goes back to the forest for another 12 years. Yes? So now, to go to the forest for 12 years and spend the 13th year in disguise, and if recognized, go back to the forest for another 12 years. The Pandavas knew the outcome of the game, that the Kauravas are going to cheat and win this game. But still they played the game. And what happened? The Pandavas lost. So they prepared themselves to go to the forest for the 12 years. And they chose Kamyaka forest to spend their 12 years. Now here, what had happened was, when they had gone to the forest for 12 years, they faced hardship and suffering. And then the 13th year, the Pandavas spent in the kingdom of Matsya, which was ruled by King Virat. 1 year, all the five Pandavas, along with Draupadi, had stayed in Matsya. Now, when they left Kamyaka forest, they had gone separate, not together. One by one, they had decided to stay in the kingdom of Matsya. So one by one, they reached Matsya and found themselves a new name and a new occupation. So when Yudhishthir went to Matsya kingdom, he introduced himself as the advisor of Yudhishthir and became the chief advisor of King Virat. And then Bhim took a job in the royal kitchen. He introduced himself as a cook and said that I used to cook food for Bhim and new name. Arjun disguised himself as a dancer, a lady dancer, completely transformation, and became King Virat's daughter's musician and dance teacher. And then Nakul took charge of the horses of the king, and Sahadev took charge of the cows and the goats of the king. And then Draupadi became the queen's maid and said that she was also the queen's maid of Draupadi. So over there, the year was almost ending, and that time Duryodhan tried to attack Matsya kingdom, but by the time they attacked, the Pandavas had come to support King Virat because their 13th year was almost over. So when the Pandavas faced Duryodhan, who had attacked Matsya kingdom that time, the year had actually ended. But Duryodhan here was like, I have recognized you, so you will go back to the forest for another 12 years. That is the time he declared that when the Pandavas actually went back to Hastinapur to get back their Indraprasth. So now, here, Duryodhan says, I had recognized you. What was the condition? That nobody should recognize you at the end of the 13th year. So you go back to the forest for another 12 years. And now, the Pandavas had already completed the condition according to what had been laid down. So it was now Duryodhan to accept his defeat and give the Indraprasth. So in the next lesson we will see what happens. Till then, bye. See you.